Hey, Cypher here. The question of who is the most influential person on history is a bit of a tough one. Any historian's gonna have to qualify his answer quite a bit, and I'm no different. So it's kinda hard to gauge who would be the most. One could talk about Karl Marx, Adam Smith, or Descartes, or a whole wealth of modern people who have made a huge and lasting impact on history. But in terms of influence, it has to go to people who are much more ancient than that, because history builds upon itself. We're not just in a vacuum when we're existing. So I have to ask, what is the most influential thing on history, period, and I'd probably go with religion on that one. But I wouldn't say that Christ, Muhammad, or Siddhartha, Buddha, is the most influential. They created religions, they didn't make them influential. But at least in terms of Christianity, there is one person you can point to who had made it influential, and that is Constantine I, or Constantine the Great. In 306 AD, he became emperor after a long and drawn-out civil war, which ended a whole bunch of civil wars that had lasted for nearly a century. He consolidated the empire, and he brought in a bunch of new reforms that would make the empire last for over a century more. One of those reforms was Christianity itself. You see, before that, Christianity had been all kinds of split up and very much persecuted. So with the Edict of Milan, he made it so that they were no longer persecuted. And then he created the Council of Nicaea, which pretty much brought together Christianity as a whole, getting rid of the Nestorians and the Gnostics and all the different apocrypha that were not part of the Bible, because the Bible wasn't really a thing until the Council of Nicaea. And he also made the Bishop of Rome the main bishop, which would later become the Pope. This pushed the Roman Empire into being a very Christian empire, and then basically made Europe Christian. So because Constantine the Great, just one guy, converted to Christianity, we became Christian in the West. And that has probably been the most influential thing on history, at least in my opinion.
This is Robert Marshall from Reading Through History, addressing the question of who is the most influential person in world history. I've chosen the Emperor Constantine, essentially because he was the Roman emperor who, before becoming an emperor, adopted Christianity himself. Then he issued the Edict of Milan, where he made Christianity a legal religion in Rome. This ended a 300-year persecution against Christians, mainly at the hands of past Roman emperors. From there, he went on with the Council of Nicaea, which was the first ever meeting of Catholic bishops from around the world. He paid for them to go there and iron out their differences. He basically made Christianity the official religion of Rome. It happened later with Theodosius, but he made it an acceptable religion, turning it from a private sect to a public religion. And he was, of course, also the one who made Sunday an official holiday in Rome. Christians had been practicing their religion on Sunday, but they've been doing it in private until he did. And then, of course, setting up Constantinople, making it the new capital of the Roman Empire. Once he moved everything there, the Rome in the West started to decline. The Rome in the West kind of went toward the Dark Ages, whereas Constantinople would continue to be a center of art and learning until the time of Columbus. He also burned nearly every single piece of Christian literature that contradicted with what the new establishment, the new Catholic Church, basically said was Christianity. So he transformed the culture of Rome, thus Europe. Rome would collapse, but Christendom would survive. And in my opinion, nothing has influenced Western civilization more than Christianity. So he is the one who, in my opinion, is the most influential person in the history of the world.
Hey there, students. Tom Ritchie here, and I want to agree with the gentleman who's spoken already. Constantine was definitely a very influential figure in history. After all, the guy legalized Christianity, which is even today the world's largest religion. But then, how did this illegal religion come to be? There had to be something there for Constantine to legalize. So who brought this about? And I would really give more credit than anyone else to St. Paul, who was not one of the original 12 apostles, but St. Paul was the popularizer of Christianity. Before St. Paul came along, the original 12 apostles, a lot of these guys were fishermen, tax collectors from Judea, spoke the local language, but really didn't have the capacity to get Christianity out beyond the confines of Judea. So here comes Paul, who is not only a Jewish rabbi, now known as Saul when he's traveling in Jewish circles, but he's also a Roman citizen, which allows him to travel around the Roman Empire and grants him such privileges such as not being beaten up upon arrest and that sort of thing. So he's able to go wherever he wants, and he's got full legal protection. Keep in mind, not everybody in the Roman Empire was a citizen, and he was also from Tarsus, which was a major commercial center in the Eastern Mediterranean. So although he received a great rabbinical education and knew about Judaism, he also would have received an education in the Greek classics and understood the Greek language and Greek culture so much that he was able to go to Athens and he was able to explain Christianity to Athenian aristocrats. This is not something that Peter, James, or John would have been able to do. So really, when it comes down to it, I would say that St. Paul was even more influential than Constantine because he's the one who built the foundation for the religion to spread enough to become illegal and then finally legal and then later on official. Now then, of course, we could ask, well, who's responsible for all of this Greek culture that was in the Eastern Mediterranean, which allowed somebody like St. Paul to have a common language and common culture for the discourse and for this to spread? Well, that would be Alexander the Great. And so really, when it comes down to it, without Alexander the Great, you wouldn't have this common Greek culture. So let me go ahead and say that the most important person in history and the most important historical figure was Alexander the Great. Now, who taught him?
Hello, I am Mr. Beat, and I'm answering the big question, who was the most influential person in world history? I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying influential, but it's been weird. This is like my 20th take. Anyway, I think it's Aristotle. Whoa, 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 whoa. I know some of you are thinking, well, what about religion? Okay, you know, religion has really dramatically shaped the way world history has gone. I initially just thought religious figures, you know, Jesus, Muhammad, all that. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that science probably was more influential overall than religion in world history. You think about all the progress we've made with technology, things like medicine that have led us to be so successful as a species today. I think humans are doing pretty good for themselves, but it's not because of religion. I think it's because of science. And not to say that religion isn't important, but yeah, I think science probably has a little bit more sway. And because of that, that's why I chose Aristotle. Because, you know, modern science can be traced back directly to his ideas, which were just unique for their time, okay? The scientific method, he pretty much created that. His whole idea of reasoning and looking at empirical evidence to determine truth, things like this. And you could argue that Plato or Socrates, who came before, were more influential because they came before, but I think Aristotle took what they did to a new level. Alright, so Aristotle, all the way.
Welcome back, class. I am Mr. Betts from Mr. Betts class, and I was asked who was the most influential figure in world history and why. Now, I went back and forth because there's so many different ways that you can evaluate this, but in the end, the most influential person was and continues to be you, the individual. Honestly, 90% of the people that you learn about in world history are dead. Their influence is capped. And I say 90% instead of 99% because history is chronologically biased towards the present. But it is the individual alive today who has and who has always had the ability to influence their world. Individuals have the greatest power to see their world as one of hope or fear, accomplishment, despair, curiosity, or opportunity. You live in a unique world, completely different from anyone else's. But if that's a little too philosophical for you, I don't know. Johannes Gutenberg?